Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome back to your source for fantasy hockey news. It is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Friday edition. It's time to break down some of the top underrated blue liners in the game, and of course, big time bets. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back inside the lab, everybody, to Friday's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Always alongside my esteemed and distinguished co-host, Mr. Steel Roden, on the West Coast. It's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone, back here in Ontario, holding it down for all you fantasy fanatics. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode, my friends, we're getting in a little conversation about some blue liners in the game. Some of the underrated D-men that have been getting it done this year. Some of them are still out there at decent percentages in fantasy leagues. It might be time to start poking around for a trade or looking at making an ad for some of these blue liners because they are not getting nearly enough credit that they deserve. We got a mini 3-game betting board for Friday night's action. Steel's on fire. I'm heating up. There are a lot of good picks flying around. So we're going to make some money at the end of today's show, people. But let's get right to this discussion, Steel, because you and I have been pretty goaltender forward focused over the last week or so. Let's show some love to the D-men. So why not show some love to the D-men who are not getting enough this season? Who's on your list? I got 5 guys, some of the top underrated D-men in the league. Who are you taking a look at?
Yeah, I've got 5 guys as well, and I think we do have a couple of good defensemen that we're going to talk about. The first guy the first 2 guys I'm going to be talking about are guys that I think you should be targeting for a potential trade, and that they're most likely owned over 80%. The first guy I've got is Rasmus Andersson of the Calgary Flames, owned at 86% on Yahoo. He had a career year last year, 50 points, outstanding. Obviously that was above expectations of what we thought Anderson could do, because consistently he's always been a 20 to 30 point kind of guy, but he really stepped out of his element and proved that he can be an offensive zone minded defenseman that can jump into the plays and help his forward group as well. He's on pace to break his stats from last year. He's got 4 goals, 20 points on the season, 62 shots, 52 blocks, and 27 hits. He is on pace to break all of those stats, which is great for a categorical league or if you're just in a points league as well. And I think this is a guy that you could easily target on a trade because he's not one of those household names, but he's still producing in the fantasy leagues. He's actually top 15, maybe top 20 in fantasy points this season for a defenseman. So a guy that I really like so far this season.
Great point. And it's interesting because, you can almost expect going into this season after they acquired Mackenzie Weegar that maybe some of his minutes and his effectiveness was going to go down. It's been the opposite. He has really stepped up in the absence of, Zadorov's been pretty solid for the Flames, but Weegar has only really started to show a little bit more offense and overall quality. Even still, I would say he's been disappointed. So to see Anderson really step up and continue to get it done, you've been on that player for a while, so kudos to you because he continues to be an effective piece. I'm looking at this list from the point of I need some offensive value in my life sometimes on my defensive block and my roster. So I'm looking at a guy named Vince Dunn on the Seattle Kraken who, 4 goals, 12 assists this season. He's gone cold over the last week and change. Along with the Kraken, some injuries now to that Kraken blue line. They also have Alexiak getting dealt that suspension. So things aren't exactly going as well as they were in Seattle, which is why I have him at the top of my list at 5. Sorry, at the bottom of my list, I should say. But 4 goals, 12 assists. He's eating almost 24 minutes a night in ice time. And this is why I really like Vince Dunn. If you're looking for a shot in the arm in the power play department, he has 7 points on the power play this season and is the top power play specialist for the Kraken. When they're rolling offensively on the power play, he's a big reason why. And I expect him to be back near, last year, 35 points, Steel. 40 points is very much in the realm. 45 points for this player. He's going to need to pick it back up, but I like him and the offense Vince Dunn brings to the game.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it right there. The cold streak for the Seattle Kraken is sort of why he's been cold over that stretch as well. But a guy that I think I mentioned, or both of us mentioned a couple of weeks ago, maybe even a month ago at the time, a very underrated defenseman that has that peripheral stats you can really look forward to pick off the waiver wire.
Only owned in 60% of ESPN leagues as well.
Not bad. So maybe a guy you could actually get on the low if you want to trade for him as well. Another guy that I think you can trade for, who is becoming a little bit of a household name now for me at this point, is Gustav Forsling of the Florida Panthers.
Yep.
I really like this kid a lot. I talked about him heading into the preseason as well. He's only owned at 77% right now on Yahoo. So definitely going to have to trade for him if you want. But, jumping onto that first pairing with Brandon Montour at the beginning of the season, but now obviously Aaron Ekblad has really benefited this kid's game.
Huge.
4 goals, 20 points on the season. He's plus 12, 91 shots. He only had 145 last year. So his shots on net has really stepped up his game as well. 39 blocks, 29 hits. And you talk about minutes played, he's up to 24 minutes on average this season, which is 3 more minutes than last year. They put a ton of trust and a ton of faith into his game. He's proven that point right now, 20 points on the season, like Anderson, and I can see his points getting up to 45, 50 potentially on the high end.
Yeah, most definitely. A lot to like about that player. Again, another guy that you were on very early in the season last year and in the offseason. So I got to keep giving you that love, because some of those guys, it's not exactly like going out and thinking, well, I think Drew Doughty's going to have a bounce-back season. These are some guys who are just starting to formulate a name for themselves in the NHL and definitely in fantasy circles. But we got to pay these bills. Today's episode is going to be a short one. I have a bunch more underrated blue liners. We got big time bets coming up, but we also got to make sure all of you are safe out there on the roads this holiday season. If you're hanging out with friends, putting back a few drinks, a few can become too many. The evening comes to an end and people start to leave and you think you're good to drive. You live close by. It's no big deal. What are the odds you get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance, you lose your license. How about even worse, you could kill somebody? Everyone knows the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that doesn't usually stop anyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our road to keep us all safe and to save lives. If you're thinking of having a few holiday drinks and drive this season, please think again. Play it safe, plan ahead, and get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Once again, for your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, and the take of the day, available on all podcast platforms that you can think of. And thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Flip, I'll throw it over to you. You've got 4 defensemen left. I've got 3. Who are you looking at?
Let me go very quickly, because I think I have spoken at length about how much I do like this player. Small sample size in the NHL for Sean Durzi, but he came on very nicely last year for the LA Kings steal. And I just think this player is I like to say, just starting to scratch the surface. But given that he is 24, I think he is about to really step out as one of these really good, effective, two-way defensemen. 4 goals, 15 assists already this season for the LA Kings. The LA Kings score a lot of goals. They are in the top 5 in the NHL in goals scored. And if you can, jump on Sean Durzi while it's still possible. 56% owned in ESPN leagues, and he does a little bit of everything on the peripheral side. I don't hate 40 shots on net steal. His time on ice creeping up over 20 minutes. Get some of that power play time. He doesn't put up a ton of power play points. Oh, wait, how about 8 this season? Coming together nicely at all ends of the ice. Let's keep this one short and sweet, because everybody knows how much I love me some Sean Durzi. But I really do think, Steele, he is one of the underrated D-men in this league today.
I love the fact that you bring it up, because I knew you were. I also, that's the next defenseman I have on my list here, Sean Durzi, a guy that you either have to trade for or luckily maybe get off the waiver wire, since he is owned at 53% on Yahoo. But you said it, 4 goals, 19 points, 27 points last year. He's been given a ton of faith and opportunity on that pairing, first line or second D pairing for the LA Kings. He's been phenomenal. And to keep this short, but that game against the Toronto Maple Leafs, he had like over 100 friends and family at the crowd. And eventually the whole entire arena started booing him after that Pierre Engvall incident. So didn't think he deserved that, but
good Toronto boy.
Good Toronto boy indeed, Sean Durzi. Definitely check him out. The next guy I have on my list, Luke Schenn of the Vancouver Canucks, has been very underrated. 51% owned. Probably a guy you won't want to trade for, but if he is available on the waiver wire, which in most leagues he is, definitely go pick him up. And it's not those goals and assists that you're looking at, because he does have 2 goals, 8 points on the season, but it's really those peripheral stats if you're in a categorical league. Definitely. 36 shots, 125 hits, and 48 blocks. I'm just looking at it right now. He's got more fantasy points than Thomas Chabot, Neil Pionk, Rasmus Sandin, Victor Hedman, Vince Dunn, Evan Bouchard, Tony DeAngelo. The list goes. Chris Letang. I know Letang was out for a little bit, but nonetheless, those hits are adding up for Luke Schenn. So if you need something, if you need hits for a categorical league, Luke Schenn's your boy.
Man, just impressive that Luke Schenn is still in the NHL getting it done. And now almost out of nowhere, perhaps the most value he's had fantasy-wise in a long time, just for these banger league beauties. He is a grit grinder, man, and he throws that body around. I don't even know how old he is. You know me with age and numbers, but he's probably at least 50 or 60. No, I'm kidding. He's getting up there in age, but impressive stuff coming from Luke Schenn, and we're talking about underrated, under-the-radar fantasy blue liners getting it done this season. I had Luke Schenn on my list. I had Forsling on my list, and then I had to shuffle the deck a bit because of my top 3 here, Steele. And at number 3, I think, honestly, these 3 guys to me all could be number 1. Let's talk about Shea Theodore for a second. And maybe he is more recognized in a lot of dedicated hockey circles. Real fantasy GMs know his effectiveness, and people are going to be like, Flip, are you kidding me? He's not under the radar. A lot of people need to pay attention to how good Shea Theodore is. 4 goals, 18 assists, almost 22 minutes a night in ice time, 41 blocks. How about he also chips in on the power play? I get that he is on a really good team, Steele. I just think over the last couple of years, Shea Theodore has really proven, he's been effective. He's been a Norris Trophy candidate. He has been, in the mix for one of the better D-men in the league. I just think he needs some respect on his name. And I know there's other players that could be on this list, but I think playing in Vegas, maybe he doesn't get enough love, but he is a prototypical stud defenseman, 6'2", real beauty.
I'll tell you what, I think there's more value in Shea Theodore than there is in Alex Pietrangelo. That's just me.
There you go.
I think he has a very high-end offensive game. I think he has underrated stick handling abilities. I've seen him do it in the past, zigzag through guys and bury the puck. I really like Shea Theodore. The last defenseman I have on this list is Jonas Siegenthaler of the New Jersey Devils, owned at 11%. I would have thrown Jake Sanderson on here as well.
Okay.
I actually just picked him up in a league of mine. Also has 11 points, but I really like Jonas Siegenthaler's game right now for the Devils, owned at 11%. He's got 11 points on the season. He's got 35 shots, 33 hits, and 51 blocks. He's on the top pairing with Dougie Hamilton, who is a top-tier defenseman in this league. He's on the first penalty kill unit as well. I think his time and his opportunities is going to go up for the Devils. He's still a little bit of a young kid. This is his second full season in the NHL. Under the New Jersey Devils, of course. But I like his game, and at 11%, I think there's a lot of upside to picking him up off the waiver wire.
My goodness, and how good have the Devils been? Just by association, you don't hate having a little piece of that magic that's been going on in New Jersey. Look, I looked at the top 10 in scoring. I started here in the top 10 in scoring for blue liners this year to see who was going to shake out from my list. And I look at the number 8 player sitting on this list in the top 10. He's got 24 points this season, Steele. In Filip Hronek for the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah.
No one is talking about this player. And when I look over at his ownership percentage on ESPN, it's creeping up very quickly, up to 67. For a guy sitting in the top 10 in scoring, 8th, that doesn't make any sense. And then when you look at the rest of his statistics, this guy's playing almost 22 minutes a night, Steele. He's got 24 penalty minutes. He throws the body with 44 hits. He gets it done with the block shots, almost 30. There is a lot to like about this player. And at 67%, if you're in a league that he's not out there currently owned right now, go out there and add him for free. And I'll say this, he gets it done at both ends of the ice, and I love me a D-man that can do that. And the only reason he's not at number 1 at my list is because, again, when I looked at that top 10 in scoring, there's a guy named Josh Morrissey who's number 3 that, again,
incredible.
Nobody is talking about, and it's out of nowhere. So while I actually really love your list, and it's a bit different than mine for good reasons, I'm loving the fact that you didn't bring up Josh Morrissey, because I do think he should be on this list somewhere. Maybe I have him too high. But 32 points for the Jets this season, 27 assists. He leads D-men in assists this season. He's been a revelation for them, logging 23 minutes of ice time. The Jets also one of those teams that have surprised big time, and he's been a big reason for it. That offense clicks.
2 guys that a lot of people haven't really been talking about this season, but we should be talking about Filip Hronek because of my boy Ryan Reeves with the big hit the other night. Absolutely obliterated him.
Wow.
Love to see Ryan
Reeves was all over the ice in that game.
I don't know if you saw, but in that pre-game interview with Biz Nasty, they were going out a little bit. That might have set him off heading into the game. So he went out there with a little chip on his shoulder.
That is not a player that I would want to line up against ever.
Not at all. But those are the defensemen that Flip and I think that you should be targeting either in a trade or off the waiver wire in any scenario. Guys that have been very underrated so far this season. Let's get to big time bets. But first, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. We appreciate all the love and support. We're so close to 700 subscribers. And thank you so much. Happy holidays. Big time bets where the money is made, Flip. You and I are on heaters right now since the beginning of the week. We have turned things around since a very, I don't even want to talk about last week. We'll leave that in the past. But
thank you.
I've got a little bit of a different route. I have a big Flip triple dip for you.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to just ram all three of them off right now.
Fire it.
First pick of the night. We've talked about Sam Steele a little bit from the Minnesota Wild.
Interesting.
Sam Steele anytime point. I know the point production isn't as high as a lot of other people in the league, but you've said it. He's playing on the top line with Zuccarello and Kaprizov. He's getting those opportunities.
Yep.
Again, I'm going to go back to that game over the past weekend against the Vancouver Canucks. An underrated backhand snipe show.
Yes. It was dirty.
It was dirty. Sam Steele, anytime point. I don't know what the odds are right now, but
we'll tweet them out.
We'll tweet them out before the game. Second pick of the night. Frederick Gaudreau, anytime point.
Ooh, wow.
2 straight games. He's got 3 goals in his last 2 games. Another guy who doesn't have the point production you'd think that you would want to put some money on. But going up against the Chicago Blackhawks, I'm willing to dabble a little bit of money on Frederick Gaudreau anytime point, as well as Sam Steele for 2 player props. And the final pick of the night, of course, going back to the well on this one, Minnesota Wild on the puck line, minus 140 against the Chicago Blackhawks. Marc-Andre Fleury is coming back for revenge against these Blackhawks. They did him dirty.
Okay.
Just like the Vegas Golden Knights did him dirty. He's coming out for all of them. Those are the 3 picks and the lock of the night, Wild on the puck line.
You know what, Steele? There's something to be said about, look, you watch a lot of Minnesota Wild hockey. You watch it start to finish.
Oh, I do.
There's something to be said about, having a feel on what a team is doing. And I tend to think that's what you got going on, because you've been betting on the Wild now and winning while they're being hot. You got to jump and strike while the iron's hot. Also, the Wild are 3 straight against the Chicago Blackhawks, so why not strike while the iron's hot there as well? And look, those player props are very interesting, and you're going to like my first pick of the night then, which is another player prop. My boy Kaprizov has gone a little ice cold with the goals in the last 4 games. Yes, he's still chipping in with an apple or 2. Yes, he's still facilitating and doing his thing, but he's going to get back in the goal column against the Chicago Blackhawks tonight. I'm feeling Kaprizov's 18th goal coming tonight. Give me Kaprizov anytime goal. That's my first pick. Second pick. This Calgary Flames team is finding all new ways to lose and blow me some money. They blow it again the other night against the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah.
Now they've lost 3 straight games against Canadian teams and 4 straight overall. They're back at home against the St. Louis Blues, another team that's been so-so, mostly not good over the last 10 games. So do I like taking a road team that's not been great? No, I don't. But what I've seen from the Calgary Flames is just so bad that until they win a game, I'm going to continue to fade them. The Blues have also taken points in 7 of the last 9 games playing against the Calgary Flames. So I like that recent trends as well. And look, watching the game against the Vancouver Canucks, Steel, the Calgary Flames need someone to take the reins. They need someone to step up. I don't know if it's Huberdeau, who's been a ghost, Nas, who's been so-so, one of the goalies who have also struggled to take the crease. Someone needs to be better in Calgary, and until I see that, I'm going to be betting against them. Now, I arrive at my lock of the night. This is only a 3-game board, Steel, so it is a bit dicey. But when I look at this Islanders-Coyotes game, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. 5 of the last 7 games against Zona, the Islanders have won. Sorokin is a beast. I was going to touch the under in this game, so that might also make my card because 7 of the last 7 between these two, under the total. But give me the Islanders on the road, on the money line. I'm taking the better team. I'm taking a goalie that I think is going to stand on his head after he hasn't been great, Sorokin. You know what I'm saying? He's let in some couple of 3-goal games. This guy doesn't give up many goals. He's going to be better. Islanders minus 178. It's a bit juicy, but I'm still feeling it for my lock of the night.
I like the picks there, and I'm hoping for our player props that we see in we see a Kaprizov goal with the steal and Gaudreau assist on that goal as well.
Bang.
And, hit our player props for the Wild
all
game.
At one.
I love our picks. I think I might parlay a couple of these as well. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your next listen, again, check out Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts, just like this podcast right here. Once again, Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. You don't want to miss out. We got a ton of hot content coming over the holiday season, heading into the new year. Again, don't want to miss out. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. And we shall see you back here again on Monday.